Welcome to this video about getting referrals. Getting referrals are crucial in streamlining the interview process, and over time they'll help you get offers at better companies that might be more suited in the interests that you have and share with other people. In this video, we'll start off by talking about the reasons that referrals exist, both for yourself and from the perspective of a company and engineer. We'll talk about how referrals really benefit you, and then we'll get into the deep nitty-gritty details about talking about how you can ask for a referral. This might be from a friend or from someone you don't know very well. And lastly, we'll talk about how you can continue to build and maintain your network over time so that getting referrals is an easier, smoother process with people that are already your friends. First, let's talk about the reason referrals exist. So why do companies even want referrals to begin with? Isn't it enough to just post a job description online and wait for people to apply? The answer is sometimes. First, a lot of the times there are companies that are pretty big and have a lot of applicants, but on the other hand, there are smaller companies that might rely more on referrals just for sheer volume of applicants. More importantly, recruiting is really expensive. There are some cool statistics online for recruiting, but basically it costs tens of thousands of dollars to recruit a single candidate because of how much work there is to get the job description out there, to vet them, do background checks, do intro interviews, and so on and so forth. So companies want referrals because first, they can spend less on the recruiting process itself, and in doing so, they can redirect this money towards their engineers and offer them bonuses for doing these referrals. And this way, they spend less money and have happier employees. Engineers at these companies also want to give people referrals. If you have a good relationship with an engineer and they know that you can code well or that you're technically capable, they'll want to work with you. And so engineers that get to work with people they like lead to happier engineers overall, as well as having engineers that are somewhat culturally consistent throughout the company. Second, let's talk about the benefits of applying with a referral. When candidates apply via a cold application online or a cold email, many intro phone screens have to do with recruiters vetting the candidates for simple behavioral questions or technical capabilities. Oftentimes, if you apply with a referral, the company will make the assumption that the engineer or other person who's referred you to the company has already vetted you for some of these basic technical capabilities or behavioral interviews. So often you'll get to skip these intro conversations. Additionally, if you apply with a referral and make it to the final round of interviews, and even after that, you might be up in the running against a candidate who doesn't have a referral, but also did well in these interviews. In those rare instances, you might have a slight edge over the other candidate because of your referral, as the company will assume that the engineer who's referred you will have a similar culture that the company has, and will also assume that you share some culture with that engineer. And sometimes it's advantageous to have a consistent culture throughout a company. Third, let's talk about asking people for referrals. In some instances, you might have a close friend or family member who will happily give you a referral without asking for much else. However, sometimes you'll want to work at a company that you don't really have any friends or acquaintances at, and getting a referral there can seem daunting. What works best is finding a mutual friend of someone who works at this company and getting an introduction that way. You might ask to grab coffee or have a chat and simply just ask about some of the work they do. After a short conversation and some friendly chatting, you can often convince the person to give you a referral by simply asking for it at the end of the conversation if it doesn't arise naturally. If that doesn't work, you can always go for cold methods of communication. This might include a LinkedIn message or emailing someone that you found from their GitHub page or their LinkedIn page. In these situations, you want to email them or send them messages that pertain to some of the work they do, showing that you already have a vested interest in the things that they've involved their time in. For example, if you find out that an engineer at Google has a really awesome GitHub page where they've done a lot of work in, let's say, computer vision, and you also have some interest or background in computer vision, or you just have an interest in it in general, you might send them an email or message asking to talk about it or have a conversation or offer some commentary. In doing so, you establish some rapport with these people, and they'll be more likely to give you a referral or have a conversation with you about a company, and this oftentimes will lead to healthy relationships over time. Fourth, let's talk about getting referrals without an already built or established network. Oftentimes, as is the case for people who are just getting their introduction into the computer science world, they won't have many friends or engineers who are working at well-established companies, and it may seem extremely difficult to get their foot in the door for some of these more lucrative companies, such as the Big Four or smaller startups. Don't lose hope. In these events, you can still find someone who is willing to give you a referral by visiting areas, meetups, career fairs, events, where you can have one-on-one time with someone who works at these companies. What's really important in these conversations is that you don't just talk about your technical work. If you have a cool hobby that you might share in common with someone, or you have an interest in the same kind of music or TV show, etc., you're much more likely to build a friendship with an engineer or other role at some of these companies, and they'll be more likely to offer you a referral. Remember, a lot of work relationships are about building friendships before building anything else. And the things that come out of these work relationships, such as referrals, are sometimes better thought of as an afterthought. And as long as you can maintain these friendships and build this rapport, you'll be set with or without a network. Fifth and lastly, let's talk about how you can leverage these skills to maintain and establish a network over time. Even if you're not well connected in the beginning of your career, as you go through different roles and jobs at different companies, it's important that you first build friendships. So when you're talking to people who might be on your team or on different teams, whether or not they're related to your product or functional team, you should always treat them with courtesy and generally try to maintain friendships and kind of know what's up with their lives. After doing this and making friends at all of these companies, you probably want to revisit and talk to them. So you might email them every few months or even once a year or a couple of times a year asking what they're up to. And maintaining this interest in their lives and letting them know that you're still existing and doing all this cool technical work, they'll also think of you in the same way. And in 5 to 10 years, you'll have a massive network of people who you can call friends to close friends that are going to be fighting for your success. So getting a referral won't seem like such a challenging task, and it'll be as easy as sending a text message or email to one of the people you talk to on a monthly or bi-monthly basis anyway.